I finally got it here today. It's been months in waiting, and I want to share my experience of this module with you because I'm not sure if I'm even going to be keeping this thing, honestly. It looks really cool, and I see potential for it, but at the same time, I'm wondering if it's really a right fit for me. I guess time will tell how I get on with this module. Let's go ahead and unbox this thing, and we'll discover together, I guess. That's what I want to do. I want to show and share my insights, and yeah. Okay. So from Sacrament Modular, manufactured by Erica Sense, and I'm doing a horrible job using my knife here. I just want to make sure you see and get the full grasp of what I'm going through. You can see my box was actually a little squished, but yeah, I'm here in the USA, and this came all the way from Latvia. All right, so here we go. Oh, okay. Well, it looks pretty nice. Yeah. The Cursible. Okay. Seems pretty simple. Some cool graphics, though. I mean, it's got a lot of appeal there, right? You see these graphics, and it's like, ooh, okay, what am I holding here? You know, well, this thing totes itself as a pretty wild tool. So if you have 6 effects, yeah, look at that. Now, I really thought that panel would be a lot darker. This is actually like a dark gray. I thought it was going to be like black with like gray sort of graphics on it, but instead it's more of a gray panel with black graphics. So that's a bit different than I thought it'd be. Anyhow, I guess the idea is I get 6 effects that I can sequence the send and return on. So I can sequence or more for have them all at the same time in parallel sort of thing. I don't know. There's a few different modes here. And I can see like manual select for the different outputs. And they're not labeled normally. You see they're labeled 6, 13, 21, 22, 42, and 666. So those are the sends, and then you have the returns on those channels. And an audio input, the clock to cycle the independent send sequencing or the crossfade, and there's the sum output. So that would be the returns going to there. All right. Well, very skiff-friendly looking module. And so let's go ahead and set this down for a second. See what else we have in the box here. So I'll clear my table. All right. Cable, standard stuff. Oh, we get a little hex bar and some hex screws. And the manual. Okay. Doesn't seem all that deep. All right. There you go. I guess they opted to not staple that together. But who knows? We'll see. So I've gone over the manual and tested a few things getting to grips with this interface. I'll give you a quick overview of the functions here as it's not very complex. We start off in the piano mode. This is simply a momentary push button affair for live play of the return channels into the sum output, and nothing more. The rest of the main function modes are accessed when we press Shift and a channel button. So Shift, then the top channel, labeled 6, puts us into latch mode, like piano mode, but now we latch or toggle on and off with each press of a channel. Further, this mode is the place to configure the number or specific channels that are used in all other modes that follow. Essentially, 3 channels selected will allow us to cycle between those selected channels only. Pressing Shift and the second channel, labeled 13, is a manual mode, where the encoder is used for routing the returns to the sum output with only the available channels that we configured from latching mode. Right? Shift and the third channel, clockwise, labeled 21, is CV mode. Putting any LFO or modulation at the input named XFD for crossfade is the controller for routing our channels. We have an attenuator down here to help with fine-tuning of the control. Shift and the bottom channel, labeled 22, is another manual mode, but with random. We use the encoder as the control for real-time movement speed, but the rotation direction is ignored, with the channel selected in random fashion. And this would be easier to see if I actually latched all channels on. So let's try that. And there you go. So now it's going to have like a random channel selecting process that it cycles through. Shift and the fifth channel, labeled 42, is clock mode. As it implies, you drive the channel sequence via clock input here. If I continue to hold Shift and 42, though, and then I turn the encoder, I can select the direction of the sequence. So it starts with forward, and then reverse, I believe, going to pendulum, and then random. And again, this is clock driven. So the last channel, labeled 666 with the shift button, is basically a clock plus CV mode, as it's called, or rather, it's really a sample and hold behavior, where the moment of clock rise will be when the CV level is analyzed to determine the channels that route to the sum. Now the next bit I'll label with my own terminology as a global behavior mode, toggled with a shift and press of the encoder. So I found holding this down, you get a nice visual clue of what this actually is. And it's basically selecting between individual mode or fills mode. So individual means one channel is routed to the sum output at any, for any given function mode. And the fills is where we can stack multiple channels to the output. So you may have noticed I was in fills mode going through some of these, right? So that would be fills. And then if I go to individual, and now you can see I'm just selecting the single channel in manual mode here. So speaking of visual clues, like I say, if you hold down shift in the encoder, we can see which of those modes we're selecting. So along with that, you may have noticed that the shift button flashes a specific number of times relating to the number channel that corresponds to a given primary mode or function. So the 6 flashes with a pause is the sample and hold mode, and a single flash and a pause is your latching mode, and so on. If we go into individual global mode, right, then choose manual mode, for example, we can see the channel routed to sum is basically the single channel at any given time, but we do get some crossfade curves to apply in the next global behavior setting. So holding shift for a moment on its own until channel 6, or rather channel 1 is lit, you can now rotate the encoder to increase or decrease the crossfade times, which is like the attack and decay times for each channel. So the default is no crossfade of channels with a clickless switching of the VCAs inside. And then we have basically these presets that go up in value to the longest crossfade times, right? And that's pretty much that. The final note that I want to cover is how to get back into piano mode, where the manual actually wrongly states to simply click the shift button. This simply doesn't work. I messed around for a bit and I found that you have to long press the encoder to find the piano mode again. So now we've come full circle covering everything. So let's try some patches. Okay, so here is the basic intended purpose of this module, all patched up. And so what I've done is I have an audio source coming from a simulator. And this is actually just a vocal sample that's being triggered in a random fashion. And then that is going to all these different effects via the send and returns. And then I just kind of like tweak around and play with each of those effects. And so like each one of these send and returns can be like whatever kind of wild patch, essentially, using this single audio source. And then I have a subdivided clock that I can control here. And then I have a audio output from the sum. I've selected only 4 of them in this particular case so that I can have a 4-step basic pattern that is in sync with a drum loop. So just to give you kind of a taste of that, I'm going to go ahead and unmute this. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in some drums. So I have modulations going to volt per octave of an oscillator, and then instead of a subdivided clock, I went for a patterned trigger to the clock input here. And so now I'm going to unmute, and we hear that drone. And just to demonstrate, what these are. Okay, so now that we know what these sound like, and if I blend some of them, I can get some crazy effects. So that's kind of fun. And then let's go ahead and pop this into clock mode so we can hear some of that. And I'll go ahead and add the drums as well so we can put it to a rhythm. And so the pattern that I have, it's kind of a subtle one, but you'll notice that it kind of lags on certain steps. Now for my final quick demo of this module, what I've got are various different wave shapes. These are single cycle waveforms coming from a simulator, just for ease, so that I can demonstrate morphing and blending between the different wave shapes that are all responding to the same pitch and gate CV, so that yeah, we can get a taste for how that may sound. And so I also have a 7th wave shape here coming to the audio in, and this is acting as a modulator, affecting all these 6 wave forms. So I have that. And another quick note, anything at the audio in is going to be always multiplied to the sends. So that means regardless of any mode, you will always be able to have that same signal found at any one of these sends. And that just means that all the routing magic that happens here is happening on the return channels. So the sends are really just a multiple of any signal here. This can be CV as well as audio. And with all that said and done, let's go ahead and throw a quick little tie onto these cables so we can see everything. And I love these ties, by the way. Really great, really simple. Anyhow, let's unmute. And you can see I've got it in a clock random. And I have just a minimal amount of crossfade applied here. So you can hear kind of like a clicking there, but that's just the resulting waveforms being chopped. So that sounds like a nice little blend. And then you'll notice as I get higher and higher, notes are being basically truncated off because the attack and decays are not being realized at their full potential due to the, frequency of my clock. So it is more of an attack decay than like an unequal power crossfade kind of thing. So I'll leave it right there, which sounds pretty good to my ears. And I'll go ahead and add in the percussion. And then, like I say, we have a modulator here. And I can play with that modulator as well. Now, in conclusion, I do find a lot of use for this module. It's obviously going to cater to slightly larger cases and rigs, but it can have some nice fun use in conjunction with some complex modules if your case isn't all that large as well. I find there's some quirks going on, the fact that the sends do not reflect the switching behavior and that they're just a multiple. The fact that the output is over on this side with the audio input over on this side, whereas, most modules tend to be the other way around, just creates for more spaghetti. and then, the crossfade doesn't really feel like a genuine crossfade so much as it's, that's just a CV input. Let's face it, it's just a CV that controls where the encoder is pointing. I see this as a utility module. It's basically like a multiple and a switch, but it's a switch with a lot of cool functions. So you have those modes that offer a lot of engagement and live manipulation. There's a lot of uses here. I do see a lot of fun coming out of this, and as you can hear, and I'm sure you've heard or seen other examples online, there's a lot of potential there, and it really excels in rhythmic territory because of the switching aspect, right? I don't hate it. I think it's a little quirky, but I'm gonna hang on to it for now, and you know, maybe someday it will move on. But for now, I'm gonna enjoy it, and I'm gonna try to get some fun out of it, and see what I can sample, and just build up that library a little bit more with the things that this may have to offer. So that's all I have for you guys today. I want to thank all of you for supporting me. I really do appreciate that. And once again, if you found this helpful, let me know. And yeah, I hope to see you again on the next one, and hopefully that won't take quite as long as I did for this particular video. But life goes on, and we'll see what the future holds. So I wish you all the very best, and take care.